My name is Hermann Meyer, and I'm welcoming you to the fifth edition of the 4NewMobility Leadership Talk. My guest today is Tal Bakish. Tal Bakish is an entrepreneur with a lot of experiences with respect to founding, running, and bringing to a success startup companies. Tal Bakish today will introduce us to his way of running startup teams, making them successful, his way of making decisions, and he will also introduce us to his newest startup venture, Elssway, which has developed a new approach to wireless charging, and he will give us a deep insight with respect to how the technology works, how it adds value to the customer, and how he brings this technology to the market. Welcome, Tal. Thank you very much for the opportunity of this chat. I'm really excited about it. When I look at your LinkedIn profile, you just write there entrepreneur. And the slogan is something like the worst in life is when you let opportunities go. Maybe tell us a bit more about your approach to life.
Thank you for having me here. Basically, I would say that the things you see on LinkedIn, the way I refer myself as an entrepreneur, or making sure in life that I don't miss opportunities, even if I will always regret only the things I didn't try. I think it actually comes from the wrong reasons. It very much depends on the type of person you are. But for me, throughout all my life, I think, I tend not to regret things that didn't go wrong. For example, if I lost money or if I failed a certain exam, I search for doing things I like. Sometimes they are not necessarily the good things for your career. Sometimes they are not necessarily a good thing for your relationship with your family or with friends. But it's very important for me to enjoy what I'm doing. And part of it is the reason why I turned from an engineer, which I was an engineer for 8 years, then turning into an entrepreneur actually opened my understanding, or actually triggered my understanding that things were quite boring for me as an engineer, because I'm not very good at being an expert in some specific topic, going all the way down to the details. Enjoying keeping things at the high level, but having more things included into the picture. So as an engineer, I always like to do the architecture, but never going down to the detailed design. It's just that I'm getting bored when I'm going too much to the details. And as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest advantages of let's say trying to build new companies or trying to work on multidisciplinary projects is that you always keep yourself at the high level, and you hire engineers to go for the details. Another thing is that I think, there are a lot of research about different types of people in the team. And I think the best team is actually a combination of all the type of people. So there's the one who likes to go to the detail. There's the other one who likes to focus on the most important thing and be very efficient in achieving the next milestone. There's the analytical guy who likes the Excel spreadsheets and all the accuracy. There's the emotional guy who puts some spirit into the team culture. I think you need all of them. And I always find myself as the person in the team which is sometimes less patient, wants to move to different things, likes to move fast. But on the other hand, I couldn't have done that without the people who actually execute the details. So it's a good thing for me to be an entrepreneur. I very much like the multidisciplinary approach. I very much like the doing many things in parallel. And in my nature, I'm not getting stressed because of it. Some people get very stressed. I always look about what we can do now and how we can move forward based on the current situation, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And we have a lot of bad periods as an entrepreneur, actually more than good periods.
You have done already a lot of work in the context of success with different startups, yeah, where you founded them, you invested in them, and you said already something about what is needed to have a good team, yeah, that you need the combination of people with different characteristics, with different strengths. If I would ask you, giving advice to people who would like to create startups or people who are already involved in startups, what are the main important aspects to be successful with a startup?
So the first thing I think that I can say after being in this field for I think almost 15 years is you need to have some kind of survival skills. What I mean about it is that you always have to be in the state of mind of risk management and assuming that there's no good solution for every situation, but you always have to do something in your head to say, okay, these are the options that I have. This is the most probable path to succeed. We go for it, but we know that we might get disappointed. The having this state of mind of not being able to make a decision is something I relate to survival skills. I mean, a person who knows to survive in the jungle is a person that in every situation makes a decision to do something. He doesn't sit in place and just keeps thinking, because then the lion will come and hit him while he's sitting and waiting. So not making a decision, from my point of view, is not being able to survive. You actually maintain the bad situation forever instead of making a decision to try and solve the problem. So I would say this ability to understand that life is full of obstacles, and always try to make this risk management analysis in your head and making a decision, I want to say very quickly, but actually it shouldn't be too quick, but it should happen in a relatively short time frame. This is something that is very important. And it's also important for your team, because one of the challenges in a startup is that many people in the team might get anxious in certain situations about whether the company will have enough money to continue. Should I start looking for work in another place? So having the ability to show the team that we always have the next step, we always know what we are going to do next, even if the situation is difficult, gives them a lot of confidence that things are moving, things are happening, there's always a solution. Even if the solution is not good, they always understand that we don't stop. We took in account that this could happen, and we have the plan B to continue moving forward. So it gives a lot of confidence to people. And most people in the team are not entrepreneurs. They're engineers or other types of employees that they want to have some kind of stable environment where they always know that everyone knows what they need to do. But I think that skill of risk management also influence the performance of the team in a very meaningful way, especially in the first 1 to 2 years, where everything is very shaky and uncertain.
So the role of the leadership in such a startup is very important, and it's important to take decisions, yeah, even if sometimes maybe they are not the perfect decisions, but it's better to have a decision than no decision.
Yeah.
And also you have to stay calm in certain situations, so that you don't make your team too worried, yeah, and maybe then also not being able to perform and reduce the motivation. Is this a correct understanding of what you are saying?
Yeah, a startup at the beginning of the road, it's a roller coaster in terms of funding. It's a roller coaster in terms of the understanding of what product you need to develop. You might change your type of product multiple times to make it better for what the market requires. And it's very chaotic, and you gotta give people something to hold on to. And this thing is that you always have a plan on the board, and you always show that no matter what happens, there's still a plan, and you don't get stuck. And that I think a good example of that will be actually a real roller coaster. So in a real roller coaster, whenever you have something frightening, you always immediately see the next part of the roller coaster where things are continuing. If you're not able to see that there's some continuation to the rail, you might build up stress over time that eventually makes you crazy. But even in a real roller coaster, you always, after the frightening part, you have some stable part for a few seconds just to relax, and then you get to the next frightening part. So that, I think, keeps you at a certain balance between challenge and stable situations.
I like this picture, but that means at the end that what your team needs is always to see further in the future. I would expect you need something like a strategy, yeah, so that they always see a clear strategy ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so that's part of it. I would say the second part could be that, even let's say you have done a proof of concept experiment and it failed. So the meaning of what I said before is that in such a situation, you can always emphasize what we learned from this proof of concept experiment. The plan now is how to overcome those obstacles, and not necessarily say it failed, so we have to go to square one and start doing everything from the beginning. So you always have to look at the positive side of what you managed to learn, how you can leverage that to take it to the next step, and immediately put a plan for the next step. I think the worst thing is to wait even one day after a POC. I never wait. I immediately put the plan for the next step.
We move now to your newest startup, yeah, which I find extremely exciting, Elssway. Could you explain what is the product of Elssway? And I would also be interested to learn a bit about how this idea was developed. Yeah, what was the origin of it? Yeah, so that we also learn a bit about how such startups actually come into being.
Elssway is doing power transmission solutions to solve the problem of availability of charging station for electric vehicles. And the technology is based on wireless power transfer technology. I'm not the founder. I'm not the person who invented the technology. Asaf, the CEO, is the founder, and he was in this wireless energy transfer for about 20 years. He worked on solutions that we see today in smartphones and in other consumer electronic devices. But at some point in time, he decided to find a solution that would be good also for the high power applications, which is mainly the electric vehicle, but not only. It could be also robotics and other types of fields where you need high power transmission. And Asaf worked on this idea in the garage without salary, without any funding, for about 2 years. He thought that he has enough experience to solve the problem in a way that would be better than the existing technologies. He always tells me he had this feeling that people are thinking they're trying to take what they did before and just improve that. And he always had the feeling that you can think in a different way, take technologies from completely different areas to solve this problem in a much better way and overcome the obstacles that are with the existing technologies. Like, for example, when you use coils, like the inductive conduction technology, you have to put the device exactly above the charger, which makes it not really wireless, rather non-contact. So Asaf felt that this can be solved in some way. He did a research by himself for 2.5 years. And then about a year ago, myself and another person joined to actually take it to the next step of better defining the business model, the exact product that we want to do, and also the target market and customers profile. And the nice thing about this path that we took is that during the last year we did a lot of work on trying to understand what exactly the market needs, and we found out that wireless technology is very important in terms of user experience and removing some of the cables and things that are very expensive and prone to maintenance issues. But we also found out that the strategic problem is not really the user experience. It's more about the deadlock, I would say, that there is today in the market between the low utilization of the infrastructure versus the high price of the infrastructure, or how expensive the infrastructure for charging today. And we found that other wireless technologies not necessarily address those problems. And this is the main obstacle that the market is trying to solve now. Looking at the vision 10 years from now, of course, wireless will actually be important as well. But at this point in time, it's the utilization issue that prevents customers from moving forward with EV charging. And we thought that we can bend the technology that Asaf developed to solve those problems as well. So this was not a pivot of the company. It was actually using the same technology as part of the roadmap, but beginning from what's most important for customers today and having a vision about what's going to be important for them in the next phase and how we can combine that to one roadmap. And at this point in time, by the way, we're still doing market validation. So it's an ongoing process that we still do market validation, improve the product requirement document, making those risk management things that I mentioned before. What's the best way to go in the next year, and what's the best way to go looking 5 or 10 years forward?
If I understood you correctly, then you're saying that your solution improves accessibility concerning charging, and it also reduces the cost of charging, wireless charging.
Yeah.
Is this correct?
I would say that the main problem, since electrification started gaining momentum, one of the things that came up is that in the last mile or the last meter infrastructure, the behavior is different from what we were used to. I mean, until today, we had a very large grid, provides a lot of power to many clients, but each client is very small. I mean, it's a household, there's some machinery in your house, like the refrigerator, etc. But each client is very small. And the current last mile infrastructure, or I would say the last meters even, infrastructure is very simple. But now there's a new kid in town called electric vehicle, which consumes a lot of power. So the clients now are very high power clients, and they need this power in peaks. They don't really. It's not a continuous consumption of power, but there are peaks of demand, and this changes completely the last mile behavior. And one of the things we see in the market, for example, is energy storage. I mean, all the batteries and energy harvesting and microgrid. These are things that are trying to solve those challenges, but still they are not sufficient. There's still a lot of loss of energy because of conductors that are getting heated because of the high power. There's still a lot of challenge about how to balance the power between those different clients that are really at the last meters, at the last mile in the parking lot, but they're very high consuming elements. And that's where we found that we can help, on one hand, improve this infrastructure, this last mile infrastructure, whether it's wireless or wired. We also have a solution that is not wireless. Being able to transmit a lot of power with much less cost and with much less loss. And then we actually solve the problem for the infrastructure owners, that they don't need to put very expensive infrastructure to support those challenges of the last mile requirements.
Without going into too much detail, but can you say a few words about how your technology works? What is the difference? Yeah. And then also how it compares with respect to efficiency. Yeah, because I think the efficiency of transmitting the energy is very important.
Yeah. So like I said, we have a solution that is basically enabling a very meaningful reduction of the transmission of electricity inside the parking lot. So we reduce the cost of the infrastructure, but at the same time enable very high levels of power to transmit from the grid to the different vehicles in the parking lot. Our technology is based on wireless transfer technology. And the reason wireless power transfer technology solves this is because you have a single unit in the infrastructure, which is a transmitter, like in Wi-Fi, you have the router. And then this unit can distribute the power to the entire parking lot based on the requirements in each part of the parking lot. So that's the general concept of wireless. Our solutions are actually using this concept, but sometimes we're taking a step back and providing a non-wireless solution, but we're still using the wireless technology elements inside the infrastructure, inside those wires that go inside the ground, to transfer the power in small scale from between different elements inside the infrastructure, instead of using very expensive components that you would require due to the high power transmission. So today, for high power transmission, you have to use a lot of cabinets and different elements to distribute the power between different wires, and you have to use very heavy wires and all kinds of other elements. But using wireless technology inside this network in the parking lot doesn't mean you have to use wireless to the vehicle, because this will take time until we install receivers on the vehicles. But we still use those wireless elements inside the infrastructure to simplify the power transmission from one part to another inside the parking lot. So it's a completely different concept, I would say, of power transmission, in the sense that we don't go, taking the old technology and just using it as is, but increasing everything by a factor to support the high power. Rather, we take a different approach how to transmit the wireless, transmit the power in a kind of RF wireless technique, so that all the numbers change in terms of the efficiency of the transfer, in terms of the loss of energy because of heating, and so on. So that's in general what we're doing. We're using this wireless technology, like I said, in different elements in the system, but the end goal eventually is to have a real wireless solution where we have receivers inside the vehicles, and that will provide the maximum efficiency, but it requires a lot of partnerships with the car companies and other like regulatory entities and so on. We'll have to build the whole ecosystem for that. Mm-hmm. But we take it step by step, and we're still using the same concept of wireless transfer, to make different components in the network more efficient on one hand and less expensive, so that we can overall reduce the cost of the infrastructure.
And you achieve a similar efficiency like with induction?
So I would say that even compared to the AC, we are more efficient. Today in AC transmission, when you go through wires, through simple wires, you might achieve losses of 5%, even more than that, per every 100 meters of cable, just because of heating of the cable. We're talking about high power transmission. We're talking about electric vehicle charging. So if you have a lot of vehicles and a lot of wires going inside your parking lot, you lose a lot of power on heating. And we're talking about 5%, 7%. That's very meaningful. Using RF technologies, we can actually reduce that to less than 1%, or I don't want to say even better numbers than that, but it significantly lowers the loss of energy due to heat. One reason is that we're using much less wires. And the second reason is that RF transmission is, because it's using high voltage, it's more efficient in terms of heating of the conductors in the transmission itself of the power. So even compared to AC network or AC cabling inside the infrastructure, we are way more efficient in terms of energy efficiency. And also the wireless transmission over air between antennas is very high efficiency in our technology. I mean, we're talking about numbers that are way better than other technologies, and we're not even at the end of the road. I think we'll be much better than that.
What is the difference between your technology in comparison to other wireless charging technologies which are already on the market?
The main technologies in the market today are, first of all, the inductive technology, which is the coils, the use of coils, which is the same as technology you have in the smartphone, where you have one coil in front of the other, and they have to be exactly one on top of the other for the magnetic field to influence from one coil to influence the second coil. And this is one of the problems with this technology, that you have to be exactly at the right place. Any movement will reduce the efficiency in a very meaningful way. The second technique is conductive, which is basically the same concept, but instead of magnetic field, you use electric field. So the elements are not coils, they're some kind of plates, but it's actually the same thing. And in our technology, it's completely different. It's more like, I would say, more similar to antennas. So you actually have conductors on one side of conductors actually create some electromagnetic fields that are detected or captured by a second type of conductors, and they don't have to be exactly one in front of the other. Like in antennas, they can be in any orientation between them, and still you get a very strong coupling between them. So that is the main difference from the existing technologies, and it was not done until today, because until today using this technique to do power transfer was very inefficient. You have to transmit a lot of power from one antenna, and only small part of it is being captured by the other antenna. And what we found is a way how to create some kind of resonance between them, so that they can actually feel each other, interact with each other in two directions, so that even if they're not exactly one in front of the other, they're still tightly coupled on the electromagnetic level. And that is that's the innovation, that's the IP, and it relates to the specific type of antenna architecture and the way we transmit that makes it work. By the way, these are effects that happen. This effect many times happen in small scale in PCB, in electronic cards, where you have different conductors affecting the performance of other conductors. You have this what they call crosstalk between different conductors in the electric circuit. So in small scale, it always happens, and it's part of board design in electronics to avoid those effects. But we found a way to optimize that, to amplify this effect to work in a larger scale with higher power, more distance between the conductors, but it's still the same thing that happens inside electronics boards today. So that's the main difference from the other technologies, which are mostly inductive technologies.
Could you say a few words about your current journey to find customers? What is your strategy to find customers? I mean, I'm sure you have different opportunities.
Well, that's I would say the biggest challenge in the first year, because finding the right customer means you need to build a different product for each customer. We started from a company developing hardware, and we wanted to sell hardware, but we understood at some point in time that selling hardware in this market might not be sufficient in terms of our profitability, first of all, and second, in terms of the ability to provide a full solution to the customer. One of the biggest challenges I learned over my career developing hardware, mainly hardware, is that if you sell hardware, you have to go for very high volume to be profitable, and you have to provide a very, very good solution in terms of the quality and the readiness to because customers don't change hardware very quickly. They have to be sure that this will be reliable. You will have the right supply chain. You won't get into all kinds of obstacles because of raw materials and so on. So we found that being just a provider of hardware will put us in a position where it's going to take a lot of time. We're going to have to work with very low margins, and it's not a good business. So we decided to do a full solution. That was one step, to provide the power management solution, which part of it is the use of certain hardware components, but the other part is also the software and the application itself that comes on top of it. And that's the first step to define your customer, because then we actually moved in the value chain to a different point where we're actually, instead of selling to the hardware manufacturers or the OEMs, we're now selling to the end customers, which is actually charge point operators, or those who need this solution to provide electricity to the electric vehicles. The second step is we found out that charge point operator is not necessarily a single type of customer. There are different types of charge point operators. Some of them do more. Some of them take third-party solutions and integrate into their solution. And the second thing that we found out is that there are what I call the smart charge point operators, and there are the low-cost charge point operators, very similar to the airline companies, where you have the low-cost companies and you have the more sophisticated companies. So the low-cost companies, the problem with them is that they work with very small margins. They take very low-cost equipment, and they just try to take market share by being cheaper. And these are very dangerous customers for us. So this was the second decision, to go with the more sophisticated players that are actually the bigger charge point operators who have CTO, they have R&D, they think about doing the solutions much better, working with higher margins, because we understood that these guys will have better understanding of our value proposition, and they will be able also to compete with the low-cost companies who try to take some of their market share, because now we will help them reduce the cost of the infrastructure, so they will have cheaper solutions and they will be able to compete with the low-cost companies. So this was the second part of how to distinguish between different customers. And the third part is now that different charge point operators target different segments of the market. So they're the ones who focus on residential buildings and commercial office buildings, which is one type of parking lot and one type of use case in terms of how people are charging their cars. In this scenario, usually the parking bay is owned by a single car owner, so there's only one car charging every time. Other charge point operators focus on public charging, and they have a very big tendency to go to the fast charging solutions, which is less interesting for us because we have a lower value proposition there. And the third type is public charging, but with very large parking lots, which is like airports, shopping malls, amusement parks. This is places where you have huge parking lots. People stay there for a relatively long time, sometimes few hours, sometimes even a full day. In airports, it could be more, coming and putting your car for 4 days. And this is where we have the highest value proposition, because these are very large parking lots. The utilization of each charging station is very, very low. And you want to have very cheap infrastructure to be able to support a lot of charging bays in these parking lots. So now we're actually playing between those different types of CPOs and trying to see where we give the highest value versus the time to market that we can move with them with different stages of the product. But in general, this was the last phase of how to decide which customers to work with. And like I said, those that are doing public charging with fast chargers, these are probably not a good, this will probably not be our customers in the near term.
And you said that in an earlier moment you have wired charging and wireless charging. Do you think it will start then with the wired charging? Yeah, because there you don't need to integrate any technologies into the vehicle?
Yeah, so in terms of the go-to-market strategy, we had two major challenges. The first one is how to put a receiver in the vehicle. That takes a lot of time. Even if we have a receiver that is very small and low cost compared to other wireless technologies, it's still a big roadmap with the OEMs to install this in the vehicles. And there's also a chicken and egg problem. If you don't have the infrastructure in the parking lots, the OEM will not put the receivers inside the vehicles. The second big challenge was regulation or certification. We have to work with the different entities in different countries like UL and CE and other to see how we test new technology, how we adapt that to the existing certification rules and so on. So this is also something that takes time. You need consortiums, you need to participate with different companies and try to see how you build a standard. So this was also a big obstacle, especially for our investors who say, when they hear regulation as part of the roadmap, they immediately get freaked out. They don't want to get into a process that will take time to market of 10 years. So bypassing those two obstacles at the first phase was to take the wireless solution, but squeeze that into the infrastructure, close that in a black box and say, this is a product that doesn't have any radiation going outside, but we're still using wireless inside. And we still give 60% of the final value proposition by reducing the cost of the infrastructure, although it's not wireless, still the driver have to use a cable. But this way, we actually bypass those two obstacles of putting something in the car and regulation and moving much faster to the market. And it seems like we, going from 10 years, we reduced it to 1.5 years. So this suddenly became very attractive to investors, very attractive to customers. They can start speaking with us. Everything is what I call Horizon 1. It's not Horizon 3, it's Horizon 1 project where they can start working with us now and get a solution within 1 to 2 years. And I would say this was probably our most important decision, although we lost the glamour of wireless car charging. But on the other hand, we got the attention of those who are interested in the financial value of the technology.
Yeah, but then it would be part of your roadmap, yeah, that you first maybe start with wired and then you go into wireless, but you use already you implement and already you use your technology. There's one additional question I would have in the context of your of your plan to successfully go into the market. The technology, is it only for cars, or is it also for micromobility? I mean, can you also use it, for instance, for e-bikes in cities? Is this also an opportunity?
Yeah, so we tested very carefully other markets like drones market, robotics for logistics, and even refrigerated containers on ships, which there's also a big problem of wiring power to all those containers on the ship. And eventually we made a decision that micromobility could be a good place to start in terms of the actual final wireless solution. And we're now in parallel, we're doing a solution for that as well. The micromobility, we don't have the same challenges like I mentioned for the electric vehicle. It's very low power charging, and so in terms of regulation and emission of radiation and so on, there's almost no limitations there. And in terms of the ability to install on the vehicle, there's no problem to install receivers on the e-scooters and e-bikes. The micromobility operators are open to do that immediately without any requirement to get approvals from the OEM. So this is another market we're looking at. It's a bit more challenging than the EV in the sense that there's no such entity called charge point operator in the micromobility market. The micromobility operators do it for themselves. They replace batteries or do battery swapping or other techniques, or using very expensive docking stations. And another challenge in this market is, so it means that we have a different customer there, which is a challenge for a startup to work with two different types of customers. And the second challenge there is that the place where you put the charging stations is actually public area. It's owned by the municipality, by the city, and that means you need to have them as partners as well. Either do rev share with them or have some very good relationship with those municipalities and show value to them as well, so that they can let you get this public area to be used as a charging location for the micromobility operators. So in that sense, it's I would say that in the micromobility space, it's more about business development challenges rather than technology or regulation challenges. And business development managers, the good thing about this for a startup is that it's manageable. You just need to invest the time and the money, but you can solve that. Either with partners, with distributors, with different integrators that already work with those municipalities, but it's manageable. You can build a plan how to do that and how much time it's going to take and how much money. And that is why our investors allowing us to go into this market as well in parallel. But I have to say that this is a challenge to do both things at the same time, both the EV cable-based solution and the micromobility. We're still working on how to combine that to a single plan that gives a solution for both of them without, I would say we're trying to find who's the charge point operator in the micromobility who can be our customer. Companies like, different integrators who do street advertising, street furniture, who already have this ability to install things on the street, win tenders. They have the relationship with the municipality. So we're still trying to find who's this customer that we can work with instead of doing everything ourselves. And then it means it's a different type of business development process. But other than that, at this point in time, since we're still at the technology development phase, it's not an obstacle at this point in time to move forward.
But you're saying that you're still looking for partners. Are you looking for partners mainly in Europe or in Asia or in the US? What is your approach there?
Yeah, so basically we're looking only, at this point now, we're only looking at the Europe and US market. The reason for that is that sustainability and electrification, these are the two most dominant places other than China. I mean, China is a very large market, but it has completely different characteristics compared to the US and Europe. So we're focusing on US and Europe. And I would say that Europe is even in a higher priority because the adoption of micromobility, the adoption of regulations that force our customers to do more efficient solutions in terms of environment, it gives us the momentum to move faster with them. I mean, we see a lot more in the US, it's more about the financial value. In Europe, you also have other drivers that related to the environment, KPIs and SDGs, and that gives us very good backwind to work with the customers there. So we think it's going to happen much faster in Europe compared to the US. There are also other characteristics of the market about how people are using electric vehicles and what are the different challenges in the market there. But I would say that we see a lot more traction in Europe versus the US, where it's more business-related, long-term type of thinking, whether we are interesting or not. So yeah, so I think Europe will probably be our main focus in the next few years.
You said at the beginning that you're a person who are always looking for new challenges. I mean, is there already something in your mind, a new, maybe additional project, yeah, where you would like to start a new company? Is there already something like this in your mind, or is it?
I would say that as a hobby, I'm involved in other startups, answering questions, giving some help, advising. In the past, I used to work as an advisor, but now as a full-time employee in Elssway, I don't have the time for that, but I'm still doing it on a hobby basis, helping friends or other companies. So I'm always looking at other projects. It's very interesting for me to look at that. But also in Elssway, since I'm more on the business development side, as you understand, I'm still toggling between the technology and the market. So there's a lot of aspects that I can work on that makes it interesting. I mean, I'm not diving into the details. I'm not in the R&D. I'm focusing more on the product definition on one. I mean, I'm the same person for both business development and product. So I'm kind of helping define the product, but at the same time trying to learn the market and see how we can find different solutions and products that are based on the same technology that can solve the problem better or can be more focused on the problems of the customer. But it solves for me the need to do multiple things at the same time. And I guess at some point in time in Elssway, it's going to start stabilizing. There will be more people, and I'm going to have to go for a more narrow role, and that might become too boring. But it will take a lot of time. So
the ultimate success here of Elssway depends to some extent also on the development with respect to electromobility. Yeah? And you see there are still discussions ongoing in the context how fast the market will develop, how people will adopt the technology, about the development of the infrastructure. What is your view on the future of electromobility? Are you more an optimist, yeah, that things will develop very fast, yeah, the infrastructure will extend very fast, people will adopt and buy electric vehicles in large numbers? I mean, what is your view on the future and the speed of development with respect to electromobility?
There's a very strong incentive both on the financial side and on the environmental side to go for electric mobility. I think electrification is the only way to distribute that power in an efficient way and to also manufacture power in a more efficient way in central, highly efficient factories, whether it's solar energy or other types of electric generation. So I think that is something that will just go and become bigger and bigger, not just for electric vehicles, but for other applications as well. The second thing is that I think for EV, I think the market went over a certain hype. For a startup, it might have been better for us to start 10 years ago, where the hype was still in place. But on the other hand, now that the customers understood the challenges, and not just the customers, but the entire ecosystem, the energy companies and everyone, since we're now a bit on the other side of the hype, I wouldn't say there's no hype now, but it's on the other side of the hype where we're going down. I think the good thing about this is that they're starting to clean out the noise and understanding that some solutions are not really the way to go, and they're starting to be more sophisticated on how to define the needs and how to select the right technologies. And since we strongly believe that our technology is very good to solve the transmission part of things, I think we will have an advantage. Elssway will have an advantage in that sense, that now the customers understand better why they need Elssway. But in general, looking 10 years ahead, I think we're going down now, but I think it will start going back up very soon, because, let's take, for example, in Israel, where I live, the Chinese companies are actually taking over the EV market in Israel. And the reason for that is that their vehicles are very cheap on one hand, and on the other hand, in Israel, it's very easy to use electric vehicles because the distances are very short. So I think there will be some places where it moves faster rather than other countries. But overall, I think once the infrastructure problems are solved, it's going to start accelerating very fast. The problem now is that the infrastructure is too expensive, and I think this is the main reason for the slowdown. I mean, we all know the term charge anxiety. So charge anxiety is the main reason why people don't buy electric vehicles, or even deciding to go back from electric vehicle to ICE, internal combustion engine. But I think once the infrastructure will move forward in terms of the techniques how to solve those infrastructure issues and the last mile and the microgrid issues, I think it will start accelerating back, because I think people want to have electric vehicles from every aspect, both the financial and the user experience and the environmental impact. I think this will I would say I just have a guess that in 5 years from now, we're going to start seeing a very fast slope going up. And the Chinese are helping to this trend because they're lowering the prices of the electric vehicles. But at the same time, companies like Elssway and other companies in the storage and other green energy or grid technologies enable to reduce the cost of the infrastructure or make it more efficient. So I believe that this is kind of overshoot that we have now going down, but then it's going to very fast go up, back up again, because there's too much reasons why to go up. We're already there. It's not like 20 years ago where you didn't have anything to give you the confidence that it can work. Now people know it can work, so it's going to go back up very quickly. I think in 5 years from now, we're going to see a fast trend going up. Very similar to what we had like 5 years ago.
I agree with you that people want to have electromobility, because of the usability, but also because it's more sustainable, it's clean, there's less noise. There are many advantages, but at the same time, and I think this is your focus, they want to have an infrastructure which is cost efficient, which is easy to use, which is performant. And there you come in. I think you made a very clear statement in the context of the advantages of your technology. I'm very grateful for this interview, and also your insights in the context of being an entrepreneur, all your expertise concerning startups, and especially in the context of making it a commercial success. Yeah, because that I think is one of the major challenges of startups. It's a bit less technology. Yeah, I mean, you need also a good technology. Yeah? You need a good idea. You need innovation. But
Yeah.
then you have to find customers. You have to find opportunities to scale your technology and your product.
Yeah. Looking at strategically, you know, like space technologies, they usually not going commercial, but they benefit the world. I mean, these technologies eventually propagate to other markets. So even if space technology is not commercial, it still benefits the ecosystem. And I think it's the same for startups. Many of them close, but the technologies and the knowledge, it's like academic knowledge. It goes to the next company, and eventually it's being used in some way, and you know, makes things move forward in other places.
I think that's a very good final word. And maybe we can close the interview with this. Yeah, I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity. I found it extremely exciting. I wish you all the best and I hope we stay in contact. Yeah, Tal. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much as well. Bye bye.
Bye bye.